Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. So I just want to share with you all my recent, well not recent, I actually went to Jamaica last summer and I had been meaning to do this video. Whenever I go on a trip, I want to, share my adventure with you all. A little bit of history on my goal of going to Jamaica. When I turned 40 years old, I had planned this girls trip where myself and a couple of my friends were going to go to Jamaica, and my birthday is in September, which is the height of hurricane season. And so we had this trip planned, we had paid for it and everything, and then a week before we were supposed to go on the trip, all of these storms, it was like 4 or 5 storms formed in the Caribbean, coming off of Africa or wherever they form at. And so they were going to hit the Caribbean islands. And so we ended up having to cancel the trip, and we were going to reschedule the trip. And so I'm sitting down talking to them. We're trying to come up with a date for when we can reschedule this trip, when the travel agent calls me and she says, I don't know what's going on with you and your friends, but they've contacted me and requested a refund. They're not going to reschedule the trip. And so not only were these my friends, but they were actually people that I worked with. And so just imagine my disappointment upon learning that they had canceled the trip and didn't even say anything to me. And so that was quite some time ago, and I still wanted to go to Jamaica, but never had the opportunity to go. So I joined this group called Beautiful Brown Girls, and it's a national organization, and it started out with a brunch club, and once a month we would go to brunch in whatever area that you were in, and then they started doing annual trips. And so one of the trips that they were going to do was to Jamaica, and so I said, you know what, whether I have somebody to go with me or not, I'm going to go on this trip. And so this is how I eventually ended up going to Jamaica. And so we stayed at the Lady Palladium Hotel, and this is a tour of the hotel. I'm just going to walk you through. I had a 1-bedroom suite. It was a really nice accommodations for this to be one of the higher level room types. I was very disappointed to find out that my room was actually, my building was actually all the way in the back of the property, but it was within a short walking distance of a private beach. However, I had no views from my room, and so I had 2 balconies. The balcony off of the living room actually looked out over a bunch of overgrown trees or whatever that were like a sound barrier to the main road that led to the complex. And then my other balcony was off of my bedroom, and so that just showed the pathway, like a walkway outside that led to another building. And so the little carts that they used to transport the guests, it came along that street that you see outside of the balcony. So although I was very pleased with the room, I was very disappointed with the location. And so there were like almost 100 of us in our group alone, and I was the only person that was in this building. And then the building that you see off in the distance right there on the other side of the road, there were a few ladies in that building. But anyway, the accommodations were nice. You really didn't have to leave the resort for anything unless you wanted to. And with our package also came the organization was having some seminars and workshops, and not to say that I wasn't interested in them, but they have a Facebook group where they do live Facebooks. And so I participate in those all the time, and sit in on those chats. And so I really wanted to enjoy Jamaica more so than I wanted to attend those conferences. And so I put together a trip for any of the ladies that wanted to go. We were going to go to Bob Marley's, it's like a museum or whatever, and it's called 9 Mile. And we also went to Dunn's River Fall, where you climb the falls and, you make it to the top and all that great stuff. So our trip was supposed to be like a 5-hour trip. It turned out we were picked up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We're not returned back to the resort until like 8, maybe 9 o'clock that night. It took us, I felt like we were driving forever. Okay. And so we drove and we drove and we drove and we drove and we drove some more, y'all. And then we ended up, I think at one point we stopped at a tourist location, and we go inside, and they were telling us, just show them your badge that you're with this tour company, and you'll get 50% off of most of the merchandise. And so we get into the place, and there's some Indians, that's running, the Middle Easterners that's running the place. And they had like t-shirts for $38, $40, like Jamaica t-shirts. And so the guy was like, what's the problem? You'll get it for, $24. And I was like, man, I could go to the swap meet where I live and get these same t-shirts, for $5. As I just went to Cuba and we were getting shirts like $5 for $20. Like, why would I pay you $24, $48 or whatever for these shirts? So basically, they had all this stuff in there made in China that they're trying to sell to us for all this money. So when we finally left there, we were headed up to 9 Mile. And I guess to get to 9 Mile, you're actually 9 miles up in the air, because we drove and we drove and we drove some more. And I was just like, oh my God. And so while we were touring, the lady who was on the bus, she's giving us information and she's telling us about all the cities. And so I can't play the actual audio from, this footage that you're seeing is because they were also playing music. And so of course you get a copyright strike with the music that's playing, so you can't hear her telling exactly where we were. But if I had to estimate based on the amount of travel that we did and the width and the information that she was giving us about how many miles wide the island of Jamaica is and how many miles long it is, I would venture to say that we drove through every part of Jamaica except for Kingston. Kingston was the only place I don't think we ended up at. And it's so funny because I always tell my daughter loves to travel, and I mean, she travels all over the world. And so I'm always telling her that, because when she comes back home, she's like, oh my God, Mom, like when she was in Dubai, she said, the cab driver asked us, did we want to go to the black part of Dubai? And she was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. So I said, yeah, let's go. And she said, Mama, it was the ghetto, just like the ghetto, where we live at. And I always tell her, the world is a ghetto. Every place you've ever been, you've already been there before, because no matter where you go, it resembles somewhere that you've already been. There's always a poor part of town. There's always a middle class, a working class, and there's always a upper class. And that's just how the world operates, because you have to have a service class that appeases to the people that actually have money, that keeps the economy going. And so that's kind of how I felt about Jamaica, except for I don't think we ever got to the upper class part of it. And we stopped for gas at one point, and we finally stopped at this place that I said, oh my God, like this could be St. Petersburg, this could be anywhere, any city in America. And there were these guys, they were in a motorcycle club, and they were there on their motorcycles, and some of the ladies got off the bus and they took pictures with them. And so it was just good to see the different parts. And I was so amazed that at one point you would see like these really dilapidated houses and properties, and then all of a sudden we would pass by these large beautiful homes in the mountains, and then a few hundred feet up the road it would be like a town where they had stores and whatnot. And unfortunately we couldn't get off the bus. It was only about, I think there was 7 in our group, and then there was a family, an Asian family that traveled with us, so that was 10, and then the driver and the tour guide. And so we weren't able to get off and like actually go into any of these stores that you see in the towns that we're passing through. But we did get stopped in traffic at one point, and we were talking to a lady, and she was basically saying that she was there from out of the country, and she actually was staying at an Airbnb, and was telling us, if you ever come back, get off the resort. People always come here and stay on the resorts, but if you want the real experience, get an Airbnb and get a driver, who drives you, to all these different places that you can go to while you're there. And so if I ever go back to Jamaica, I may do that. I don't know. It was a place that I always wanted to go. And then once I got there, my illusion of what it was going to be about didn't measure up to the actual experience that we had. And so, like I was telling you, there were almost 100 of us that traveled to Jamaica from around the world, and not around the world, but from around the country. But there were only about 7 of us that actually bonded together, and we formed our own little tribe. And we, once we bonded on this trip, going to 9 Mile and Dunn's River, we actually kind of like just stuck together the rest of the trip, and we had our meals together when we went on the boat ride that you'll see later in the video. We were kind of like that group together. And so I think that it is a good experience when you go places, especially if you're traveling by yourself. If you go in a group of people, you're always going to kind of end up with that group of women or whoever that you have something in common with and who you can share the trip with. And so I was happy for those ladies that we formed our own little mini group. But we finally made it to 9 Mile. I think it took us about 2 or 3 hours to get up there. And so as soon as we got there, the tour guide, she was like, okay, we're going to go. Part of coming to 9 Mile is that you have to go and smoke one for Bob Marley. And I was like, okay, well, I don't smoke, so I can't go smoke. So she said, well, but they have edibles too. And I said, I don't do any kind of drugs. So those of us that didn't want to partake in the festivities, I should say, we ended up having to stay on the bus until they went and took their little token, did whatever they did, bought whatever they were going to buy. And then we were able to go inside and do a tour. They had a tour guide, and he took us up to where Bob Marley, I think, is buried, and his parents are buried. I think the parents may have been inside of the building, and we weren't allowed to do video or take pictures. And then the grandparents, where you see the burial outside, I think those were the grandparents. And I don't know if we were able to go into the building where he is actually, where his body is. I can't remember. And like I said, I can't turn the volume on because there was music playing the whole time. But it was a good experience. There was a lot of people there. There was a lot of walking involved. And then when we went back down after we visited the 2 buildings, he might have been in the little chapel place, and then his parents may have been in the other. No, the parents were in the chapel. I'm sorry, because we weren't allowed to take pictures or record. But then we went into another building and we could take pictures, and that may have been where his burial place was. And then, like I said, I think those were the grandparents that were in the outside burial area. So then we went back down, and they had a live band there, but of course you'll see them actually performing, but they were singing a copyrighted song, so I can't turn up the volume on that. And so it was like a really nice experience. They had a little restaurant. They were doing this thing with these drinks, and it was some kind of fireball drink where he set the drink on fire and then people had to drink it, but the little fire part didn't last very long. And so by the time the people picked up the drink to take the shot or whatever, the fire was gone. And we stood there watching that thing about 5 or 6 times trying to figure out, okay, what is the excitement about all of this? And then finally one lady told us, well, you actually have to drink it to get the full effect. Just looking at the fire going off, you're not going to get it. And so we did a little bit of shopping while we were there, and then we left and we went to a restaurant where we had lunch, and the food was good, but it wasn't what I was expecting. Like, the meal was pre-planned, and it was actually paid for by the tour company. So it wasn't like we were able to go in and order our own food. But what we did have, it was pretty good. It was pretty tasty. So not going to complain. The ladies were very nice. And as a matter of fact, everybody that we encountered were very nice. And that was sort of like the same experience that I had when I was in Cuba. Everybody was so polite, so friendly, so accommodating, whether we were, on the resort or off the resort at a tourist attraction or not. Everybody that we encountered were very nice. And so when we left the restaurant, we went to Dunn's River. And so we went there, and it's basically an amusement park. And of course, I didn't know what to expect because I had never been there before. And I'm just like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to do this? But I couldn't, be nervous and scared in front of my new friends. So I said, okay, I'm just going to do it, and whatever happens, happens. Let me tell y'all something. We made it to the top, okay? But I guess it's one of those things that you just have to do, put yourself out there and do it, because it's something that, is part of, I guess, the Jamaican experience. If you go to Jamaica, you should do this. But child, walking up that waterfall, it was quite frightening. Frightening more so not because the water was deep, but frightening in that you're walking on these rocks and you're holding on to people, because they tell you that everybody has to hold on to the person in front of and behind them and form like a human chain. And so I was able to get this video footage because I bought a clear plastic pouch for my phone. And so you just turn the phone on and put it in the pouch. But what I didn't realize was that my battery had died at some point. Like, I was very, very low. And the battery did eventually die, and so I didn't get the full walk up to the top. And so you're so focused on walking to the top and not falling that I didn't even realize that we had lost 2 or 3 of our members. They had gotten off, because as you're walking up to the fall, there's certain spots where people can get off and get out of the water. And so 2 or 3 of the people that was with us, they had gotten off. They was like, child, I done had enough. So we make it to the top, and the guy, our tour guide, is talking to us. And so y'all remember that song by Fat Joe and Remy Ma, All the Way Up, or something like that. So this guy who was with us, he wasn't with the 7 of us, but he had came into our tour group. And so he started singing that song. So I started dancing, like, yeah, all the way up, whatever the words are. Fell my butt all the way back, okay? I just went backwards in the water, like, bam. I was like, oh my God. So the tour guide came over. He was like, oh my God, are you all right? Come on, sis, get up. He was like, what happened? So I was laughing, because I can laugh at myself when I do stupid stuff. And so I told him, I said, man, my mama told me, if you meet a guy that you like, just randomly fall and see if he catch you. And if he catch you, then he's the one. He said, yeah, but I wasn't paying attention. I said, well, that's the point. Because if he lets you fall, that means he wasn't paying attention and he wasn't interested. So he started laughing, talking about, come on, sis. Your mama ain't tell you that. I was like, yeah, my mama told me just fall in front of dudes, and if they catch you, they the ones. So, we were laughing about it. He said, it's good that you were able, to laugh after you bust your butt in this water. So we moved on from that point, and then when you get to the end, we were at the end, but then they have a part where they have this banner up, that says congratulations, you succeeded or whatever. And so we were waiting our turn to go up to that. So we all went up and we took our pictures, saying that we had made it so we can show it to our family and friends. And then we left there, and then we had to drive back, another 4-hour drive back through Jamaica to get back to our resort. And so our resort, it was really nice. It wasn't the, when you see the sandals commercials and stuff like that, it wasn't as nice as those, but it was a very nice facility. And we had finally, because they had a beach area, they had the private beach, and then they had another beach. And so the private beach that was near my location, it reminded me of this beach up the street from my house, because I live surrounded by water. And so that particular beach up the street from my house looks a lot like this beach I'm going to show you guys at the end of this video, because the morning that I was getting ready to leave, I walked around and took pictures and video and stuff. But just nothing fancy about it. The bigger beach, it really wasn't, like you see in the sandals commercials. There was a lot of rocks. It was just hard to get out to it. Then there was stuff built all the way out. They had bars and stuff built all the way out to the water. So, I'm thinking of where I live, we have these beautiful white sand beaches, and the buildings, the hotels and resorts and stuff are not allowed to build right on the water. So there's a whole lot of beach area, where I live at before you get to the hotel. And whereas with this resort, everything was right on the water. And so I was sitting there thinking, as I was looking at all of this, I was thinking we're always trying to travel and get to other places, go to Jamaica, go to Trinidad, go to Turks and Caicos. We're always the Bahamas, always trying to get to somewhere else. When, especially if you live in Florida, you have all these beautiful beaches surrounding you. So why do we spend all this money trying to get to somewhere else to experience something that we can experience in our own backyard? And I think that was one of the reasons why I was somewhat disappointed. Although I had a very good time and, enjoyed myself, I was disappointed in the level that I was like, why was I dying to get here? And Jamaica is definitely a place for people that want to drink and want to party. And, my partying days ended, in my 40s. I was like, "Whoo, child, I'm tired." Okay. But, you have that was one of the things it's like an all-inclusive resort. And they, was talking about, the free drinks and everything. Okay. But the free drinks were all watered down. They were all mixed drinks. It wasn't I've had far better drinks at restaurants, downtown where I live than I had there. So that whole offer of free drinks and stuff wasn't as enticing because they wasn't good drinks. And I was talking to my cousin, because she had gone to Jamaica earlier in the year. And she was like, "Oh, cuz, we got to go back because you were at the wrong resort. The resort that we stayed at when we were there, oh man, it was off the chain." And she was talking about all the stuff that they did. And then right across the street, there were these nightclubs and stuff. And she said, we went out. And she said, it just sounds like you went to the wrong place. So I was like, okay, so we go back, I might give it another try. And what else did we do? They had, the food. The food was, I don't know, the food was interesting. When you go to another country, you really want to feel the flavor of that country. And the restaurants, they had several restaurants on the property, and we tried to go to each one. The seafood restaurant that we went to, it was really good, but it was like a really long wait to get in. I think we had to wait like an hour for seating. And then the other places were all buffets. They had a lot of buffets going on, and buffets are not my things, especially when it comes to germs. And then it was just, I don't know, it just didn't feel like authentic Jamaican food to me. Like, I have friends that live here that are Jamaican, who cook food. We have a couple of Jamaican restaurants that I go to here, and they're all owned by Jamaican people. And the food is really, really good. But the food that was at this resort, like even when I was in Cuba, like the Cuban food, everywhere we went in Cuba, even when we ate the food at the restaurant that they had, everything was just so fresh and so authentic. But the food that was at these buffets that they had on the resort just seemed like if I got up and said I was going to make some jerk chicken, it probably tasted like that type of jerk chicken. And they had like a lot of mixture of, instead of just serving Jamaican food, they had Chinese food, they had Italian food, just a complete mixture. But you never went hungry because they always had a whole bunch of food. And then there was this one restaurant that we went to for breakfast one morning. Now that food was good because they was cooking. I mean, it was American breakfast, but it was fresh. The omelets and everything was freshly cooked. And so really, that was probably one of the seafood restaurant and the breakfast place that we went to. Those were the best places. So when we first got to the resort, they dropped off some people at one entrance, and then they took us to another entrance. And so I guess the resort, is divided up into two different sections. And so I realized, I think by the third day, that if the restaurant that I went to the first night, if I had just walked about 10 more feet, I would have been at the other half. And so I never did figure out what was the difference between the Grand Palladium and the Lady Hamilton, which was where we stayed at. But it was just such an illusion because driving up, it seemed like we had actually went to a separate property. But then once I realized if I had kept walking down that hallway in the back, that I would have ended up on that side. And I realized that the day when we decided to go out to the beach and go out to the water and see what was going on, and then when we did our boat excursion, we were going to Margaritaville, Rick's Cafe, and then we were supposed to go back to Dunn's River. And so we were like, oh my God, ain't no way we're going to be able to make it, at the time that we were leaving. And so it turned out that the only place we went to was the Margaritaville, and we didn't get to stop at Rick's River. Not Rick's River, that's a place here in Tampa, Rick's Cafe, because when we ended up leaving late because everybody wasn't there and ready to go. And then when we went to Margaritaville, they said don't order food. Like, if you want something, get an appetizer. Don't try to order a real meal because we're only going to be here for 30 minutes. And of course, people got off and they went and ordered full meals. And so we ended up being really late leaving Margaritaville. I think we ended up being there an hour instead of the 30 minutes that we were supposed to be there. So we didn't get to stop at Rick's Cafe. We only could stop and take a picture, and then we rode on by. And so that was a little disappointed, but I was happy that we didn't go back to Dunn's River, because I think that just would have been too much. And so the boat ride, as you can see, it was a party. All the women were on the boat. We could get off and go snorkeling. They had a bartender. They had a DJ on board. And everybody was just relaxing and having a really good time. And so that was a lot of fun. And then we got back to the resort, and we were supposed to have an 80s disco night. And we got there, and so we got back at 8 o'clock. The party was supposed to start, I think, at 10 o'clock. And so we went and we ate dinner. And then there was this Michael Jackson show that was going on. And so we stopped and watched that. And we said, oh my God, we still got another hour before this disco party starts, this farewell disco party, because we were going to leave that next day. And so we go, and as we're going back to our rooms, we're like, oh, we're just going to go lay down and rest. And I think by the time I was the last one to get off, because I was at the building the furthest away. And so we get to my building, and as soon as I got through the door, it just started pouring down, raining. It was thundering and lightning, and I was like, And so then one of the girls called me, and she was like, are you going down there to that party? She's like, because I don't want to be out there walking in the rain, and then it's hard to get the shuttles and everything. And so I was like, girl, well, let's just see. If it stopped raining, we'll go, and if it doesn't stop, we're not going. And I didn't call her back, and she didn't call me back. So I just went to bed. And so that next morning, my pickup time was 6 o'clock. I think my pickup time was 7 o'clock, and my flight wasn't until 11 o'clock. And I just couldn't understand why I had to leave 4 hours early to get to the airport. But I was like, it is what it is. And so I had a jacuzzi tub in my room, and I said, you know what, before I leave, I'm going to get into this jacuzzi. So I go and I run the water to fill the thing up, and I keep pushing the button, trying to get the jacuzzi jets to start working. And so I was so mad because I had to fill this tub up and I couldn't get the jets to work. And so I was like, oh, well, I got this water in here, so I'm just going to soak in this tub for a while, because I was so tired and every bone in my body was aching. So I get into the tub. And about 5 minutes after I got into that tub, all of a sudden the jets just shot out and started working. And so I was like, oh my God, at least I did get the full enjoyment of the tub, but that thing scared me half to death. And of course I was in the room by myself, so if something had happened, I just would have been electrocuted or whatever. So I did get to enjoy the tub, and I have a little video of that towards the end. And what else happened? The resort was really nice, but what I didn't like was that my building, and I'll show you that in the video as well, but I had to walk this steep incline to get up to my building, and then to walk down, and then to get to the private beach was another hill. And so there was like a lot of walking going on, a lot of inclines. And so that's why my knee was hurting me so bad, because I had on the wrong shoes, wasn't expecting, to have to do all this walking up hills and down hills and everything. Oh, and then I thought this was funny. I don't know who was in the room up above me, but the first night I woke up because it sounded like a bed had fallen. It was like they had gotten in the bed, and I don't know if you've ever been in a bed that has fallen, like the bed rails or whatever, just collapse, or the board breaks or whatever. But anyway, it sounded like they had one of those moments, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh my God. So they got up, and they was, I guess, trying to put the bed back together. I don't know what happened with the bed. So I was like, okay. So I finally get back to sleep, and then the last night I was there, they had gone out, and then once again, 3 o'clock in the morning, it sounded like the girl had on some hooker shoes, and so she walked, and she walked, and she walked, and she walked across that floor, and because the floor was tile, it didn't have carpet. And so that went on for about 30 minutes. I was like, oh my God, if she don't get her ass in the bed and go to sleep, I am about to go up there like, girl, go to bed. So that was the one downside to the rooms, is that the ceiling and, was very thin. And I could hear, all the movement and everything. And what else happened? And then when I checked into the hotel, I had just gotten into my room. And, I think I had just finished doing that video that you guys see at the beginning. And the guy just walked into my room talking about he was there to refill the snack bar. And I was just like, okay, he didn't knock. He didn't nothing. Just walked in, used his key to walk into my room. And so I had to let him know, if you come back up, I said, first of all, I don't think I'm going to eat too much out of that bar. But if you have to come back in here, please knock on the door. Don't just walk into my room. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And then one of the other girls said she had the same experience where they just walked into her room without knocking. So that was definitely a downside to it. What else? I think that was about it. I mean, like I say, the facilities were very nice. The people were very nice. The only unpleasant experience that I had was the first night that I got there. We were going to have a meet and greet, but they didn't say what room it was in. They was like, oh, if you don't get here when the group is meeting in the lobby, just ask one of the people and they will show you the way to go. And so I go to the front desk and I tell the guy with the beautiful brown girls, BBG, and we're having a meet and greet. And so he was like, hold on a minute. And if you guys watch the show Sisters, Tyler Perry show Sisters, the guy that worked in the bank, that's how he was acting. Okay, he reminded me a lot of him. And so, I had to wait like 15, 20 minutes while he was checking somebody in. And then he had to go in the back. And then he came back and then he said, okay, now what you looking for? And so I was like, I'm here with a group. It's like 100 of us. We're having a meet and greet, but I don't know what room it's in. And so he was like, okay, hold on. So then he was gone like 5 or 10 more minutes. So then he comes back and then he said, you just gonna have to walk around because I don't show no group by that name. And who over this organization? So I gave him the lady name. And he said, I don't have nobody even listed in no room under that name. He said, so just walk around. Like they got some, different bars and everything. He was like, so I can't help you. I was just like, okay, well, you have wasted 30 minutes of my time. So the damn meet and greet about over with anyway. So I guess I'll just go on back to my room. And then when I was walking back to my room, I ran into some other ladies that were having trouble finding the meet and greet. And so we just went and hung out for the rest of the evening. But I think that was the only person that was rude. The guys who were driving the shuttles, even though the shuttles were inconsistent and they were always full, so you walked halfway to your destination before you found the shuttle you could get on. They were still very nice. The shuttles that took us from the airport and back to the airport, those people were very nice. The people that took us on our tours, they were all nice. And so it was a very relaxing trip, I must say. But like I said, I just had higher expectations. And I think if I have an experience where I can actually get out in Jamaica, not driving, just driving on this road, to get from one destination, but actually to get into the communities and everything, like go there with somebody who's from Jamaica, who can really show me around, I think I would appreciate it much more. And just so you know, those roads are tiny, and them people driving those tour buses and them, the tour guides, they be flying on them the country roads and winding roads and running people off the road and everything else. So if you do any tours, organized tours, brace yourself, because it is a bumpy ride and they don't slow down for nothing. They swerve, they curve, they do everything. And so guys, I think that's it. You can finish watching the pictures and stuff that I took. That's basically what's in the video, and I'm gonna go. Leave your comments below. Let me know if you've ever been to Jamaica, how you enjoyed your trip, where did you stay at when you went to Jamaica. Do you have family in Jamaica? Are you originally from Jamaica? Let me know what your thoughts are. And if there's any place that if I were to go back that you would recommend, let me know. But just go ahead and enjoy the rest of the video, and I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Okay, wait a second. Where do you step at? I can't feel no snow. I feel rock. Oh, no. You okay?
Yes, it's the last day of my trip. And I said before I checked out of this room or this suite that I was going to get in this jacuzzi tub and relax and unwind. And so I have an hour before checkout. It's 5:30 in the morning. So I'm finally taking advantage of this tub, and oh my God, it feels good. Well, it is Monday morning at 6 a.m. and I am getting ready to check out of the Lady Hamilton at the Grand Palladium. And if I look tired, it is because I am. But we had a wonderful time. Got in Friday. Just got familiar with the place, walked around, had dinner, met some of the other ladies that were here, and then all day Saturday, we thought it was going to be like a 5-hour excursion, which turned into 14 hours because we left out at 7:30, did not get back until like 9:30 that night, but we went to 9 Mile, which is the resting place of Bob Marley. And so we did that tour, and I think it was like his grandmother's house or his mother's house, but we did that tour, and then we went down to Dunn's River Falls. Yeah, Dunn's River Falls. And I made it to the top, guys. And when we got all the way to the top, the guy said, "You made it all the way up." Remember that rap song? And so we started dancing and everything. And why did my butt fall backwards at the top of that thing? But it was fun. I got some video of it. And then we went to, I think in between Bob Marley's place and Dunn's River, we went to a restaurant and we had lunch, and that was pretty good. But the travel time was crazy, but we did get to go through all the parishes. We had a tour guide who told us about all the places and the significant landmarks that was there. So that was real interesting. So anytime I go somewhere, I like to get amongst the people and tour and everything. So that was a good experience. And then yesterday we had several things going on yesterday, but I didn't really participate in any of the little sister friend chats or anything. But we had breakfast, went out to the beach, did the pool and everything, and then we went on a catamaran ride to Margaritaville. And everybody thought we were going to Rick's Cafe that we had heard so much about. Well, we went to Rick's, we parked, they told us we could take pictures, and then we moved on to Margaritaville. So we didn't really get to experience Rick's Cafe. And then we came back to the hotel. There was a Michael Jackson show that went on. We had dinner. There was supposed to be a farewell party, a farewell 80s party, but there was over an hour break between the Michael Jackson show and the party. So we came back to our rooms, and then all of a sudden a really bad thunderstorm came through. So I don't know how many of the ladies made it to the party because they were closer to the main facilities, the reception area, and where the swimming pools and all that is, whereas my building is all the way to the back in the corner. And so I wasn't going to get out there 11:30 at night trying to walk in the rain back up to the front, because the shuttle service is hit and miss out here. But anyway, that was just a quick recap. And so I will add this to a video with my pictures and other video while we were out over the weekend. It was a very fast-paced weekend, but it was good overall. And so I am getting ready to call for the shuttle to take me up so I can get on my shuttle to the airport. I'm not sure why the shuttle is coming 4.5 hours before my flight, but they say that the ride from the airport is like an hour, and then I'm thinking Monday morning maybe traffic is bad, and so it may take us 2 hours to get to the airport, then have to go through the whole rigmarole over there. But anyway, this is your girl Tracy signing out from Montego Bay, Jamaica. Bye.